What's going on, guys? Andrew Piluk Hockey here, back again with another video. Today we are going to be going through tons of content, like literally so much. The Maple Leafs had their year-end press conferences. We've been hearing a bunch of rumors already. This is not a clickbait title. This isn't some sort of, just something I'm making up and throwing out there. There is a ton of information going around right now. And you guys know here on the Andrew Piluk Hockey channel, I deal with Maple Leafs trade rumors, news, everything like that. So if you want to see more of these videos, make sure to like this video and subscribe. I know there's a ton of you guys that aren't subscribed. I'd really appreciate it if you stuck around. Check out all my other videos. I've done this for years now, so I'd really appreciate it if you did stick around. But man, the Toronto Maple Leafs, there's been tons of news already since they've been eliminated from the playoffs. And I know there's a lot of opinions. Should the Leafs blow the team up? Should they retool? Should they rebuild? No, they shouldn't rebuild. And there are people saying that, which is ridiculous. But should they just fire everybody? Should they make changes? Now, I'm on the side of, yes, they should make changes. But don't worry, that's going to be dove into in another video. But how big are those changes going to be? Is it going to be a Kawhi-like move? Is it going to be a bottom six revamp? Is it going to be a trade within the core four guys? Probably leaning towards the let's get a really good second line player and spread out the depth towards the bottom six. So we're definitely going to have to dive into all of that in this video. So there's already some tweets that I want to talk about. But before I get any further, again, I just want to say there's going to be tons of videos coming out in the whole summer, basically, because this is what I do best. I'll be honest, I love doing these types of videos. So don't worry, if I don't get to something in this video, I will within this week or in the next couple weeks for sure. But like I said, the press conferences were today, and the first bit of news that people are freaking out about is Brendan Shanahan saying that Kyle Dubas and Sheldon Keefe are important to getting the Leafs to the next level, confirms that they will be back. Now, I've been one of the people that said that I was sure that Kyle Dubas was going to lose his job if the Leafs did not make the playoffs. And then usually when a GM gets fired, the new GM brings in their own coach. So I was kind of thinking that Sheldon Keefe could be a guy that's let go if the Leafs have a slow start and a new coach is brought in. But if we're looking at the big picture here, am I 100% okay with this? Probably not. But am I not a professional NHL expert and I don't work in a head office, I don't work for the NHL, and I don't truly know what's going on and what's best? No, I'm not. I'm a guy that talks to a camera. I know hockey. I would like to say that I'm very knowledgeable, which I think a lot of people would agree with. A lot of you guys watching right now are very knowledgeable and intelligent hockey fans. But we don't know the same amount of things that these guys do. And if they believe that keeping Kyle Dubas and Sheldon Keefe for another year works and they need to be part of the process, then sure. The one thing that I keep going back and forth about is that I don't exactly like everything that's happened this year. And I don't like another first round exit. But in part with the Leafs having their best franchise record season ever, most points, everything like that, Austin Matthews with 60 goals, career highs for Nylander. Like Marner had an incredible season. We made some really good additions, and then we got bounced in round one in 7 games against the referees for part of the series. And I hate using that as an excuse, but they were terrible in game 6 and 7. And, the fact of the matter is that the Toronto Maple Leafs were a really good team throughout that series. They were. They lost to the back-to-back Stanley Cup champs, the Tampa Bay Lightning, in round 1. So do you give this team another shot? Do you run it back? And for me, no, you have to make changes. But how big? Like I said, how big? So Kyle Dubas speaking to the media now, obviously when this tweet was posted, but he was talking about keeping the core intact. I don't think we want to start making changes that are lateral or inferior as a team just to say we made changes. Now, I watched a lot of the Kyle Dubas speaking. So what I need to make very clear is that Dubas wasn't saying 100% no, I'm not going to make any changes to the core. And he stressed that the core was not just the 4 guys, Tavares, Marner, Nylander, Matthews. There's a bigger part to that core, which I would include Morgan Riley, Jake Muzzin, probably Kerfoot at this point. He's been around for a really long time, and etc. There's guys that are part of this core. TJ Brody. Like there's a bunch of people that you could consider part of the core. So whether or not they make a move, it's not just going to be the core 4 guys that get looked at. If you're talking about a core and this team, it could be any of those guys. And he also wasn't very locked in on, no, I'm not going to trade those guys. We want them here. He was kind of like, I'm going to listen to offers, and if something makes our team better, then I'm going to do it. And I have to stress too, there's a lot of people, for instance, we're going to use this example, saying trade William Nylander. Okay, he's my personal favorite player, but if we make a trade and we make the team better by acquiring somebody, do it. Do it. I don't care. I love the guy and I wish him all the best, but if that makes the team better, do it. But what I'm seeing is people go, oh, just trade Nylander for cap space and get a prospect and then this. It's not that easy. It's not NHL 22 where you make a trade and then you instantly can go out and use that cap space and trade for somebody way better and somehow manipulate the system with 2 first-round picks and a prospect that's rated too high. Like, you can't do that. The Leafs need to make sure that they're getting better. You have to replace a guy making less than $7 million who's going to give you 80-plus points and give you more than what William Nylander has done in the last 2 playoffs, which has been their leading scorer for 2 playoffs in terms of combined points. I believe as of Game 6, that was the truth. So I'm not sure Game 7 might have changed that a little bit, but he's a playoff performer. In the last 2 years, he's been a guy that was a point per game or more in the playoffs. So you have to keep that in mind. Now, another thing that I've seen a lot of people talk about is when the Leafs say run it back. And this tweet by Ryan Fancy sums it up. People are accusing the Leafs of not making any changes over the last few years and not changing their roster to the point where they're not bringing in any big talent. Well, this tweet kind of trumps that because the Leafs actually never run it back. So this guy says, I don't know how people can criticize them much for that. They fired Babcock, signed Brody, traded for Muzzin and Gio, let Hyman go, found Bunting and Kasha, ditched Freddie Anderson. They do quite a bit of tinkering. That's not just a small couple moves. They've legitimately brought in a completely different group of players. They haven't had the same type of roster that they've had over the years. They've brought in guys after the Bruins series that are completely different than years ago. They've literally had a completely different roster than those Boston series. So it's been a while since those, but they've made changes every single year. That team is nowhere close to the same as it was. Now, I want to fast forward a little bit because Elliot Friedman on 590 says that he thinks the Leafs will make some changes, particularly says that they'll be looking for more tenacity in their top 6. Also has some questions for where Tavares plays in the lineup next season, either the center or wing. So getting the top 6 better, that's kind of what it's saying there. Now, this guy continues to say, obviously it's Elliot Friedman, but in his thread of tweets here, says that Dubas will be back, no concern about his contract, wonders if an extension's in the card. Freeman also adds that this has to be, for lack of another term, which I'm guessing that's what he's meant to say, Dubas' summer of Kawhi. Now, that's when the Raptors traded DeMar DeRozan to the San Antonio Spurs for Kawhi. Now, what people seem to forget is that Kawhi Leonard was going to refuse to play for the San Antonio Spurs, and a lot of people didn't know if he was going to play for any team that he was traded to. So this is a bit of a different situation. The Raptors traded their franchise guy for a top 5 player in the NBA who ultimately helped them win a championship, but Kawhi needed to be rested. He needed to be basically pampered by the Raptors, which I love the guy. He did great. He won us a championship. Thank you, Kawhi. But it's a little bit different. So I don't exactly fully agree with that analogy, but I get what the point is. So he said he thinks the Buds will really consider a major move. Also adds that he thinks Giordano will be back at a lower number. And we'll look into that as well. More from Elliot Freeman. Don't expect a long-term deal with Sandin or Liljegren. Thinks both end up with a short-term deal in that $2 million range. Now, another thing is there's a lot of info here, guys, and we're going to get over this over the next few weeks. Trust me. Also, it doesn't sound like Campbell is back. Freed says Leafs opened with 2.75 initial offer, which was far below Campbell's. Now, people are probably going to be pissed about that, but if we are going to look at the numbers, and Jack Campbell had a hot and cold season, and he had a couple really good games in the playoffs, but he still wasn't an exceptional goaltender. And I know people are really going to hate me for that. I love the guy, but again, you're picking a bias here once again. You like a guy that's really nice that plays goal for the Toronto Maple Leafs. William Nylander is my favorite player, but if he gets traded and it gets them better, I could care less. So it's about making sure that you don't have an extreme bias here, because the Leafs definitely need to get Jack Campbell at a low number, because if they sign him to a big deal, the guy's had injury trouble and he's been a little bit hot and cold. Another thing I want to bring up here is the Nylander, the whole thing about Nylander, because he seems to be the guy that everybody wants to trade. So Brian CRD, the Leafs have just north of $7 million in cap space, which again, we will get to that. I have a cap friendly pulled up for us going into the offseason. Kerfoot, Hall, and Mrazek all combined to make 9.3, and it won't be as hard to move them as you think. You can also look at moving Muzzin's 5.6. So basically what's being said here is that the Toronto Maple Leafs can move out a lot of money without having to trade away a guy like William Nylander, which obviously would make a lot of sense because William Nylander is tied for 8th in playoff goals across the last 2 playoffs. So obviously the Leafs got bounced in the first round the previous season and in this one. So you have to remember that some players are going to go a little bit higher than him in terms of the spot there, because they're going to be moving past, some players will be moving past the first round. But William Nylander basically being a top 15 to top 10 scorer in terms of goals in the playoffs in the last 2 years. I mean, I'm not really sure how you just replace that guy so quickly, but the Leafs performed in the playoffs, like I said before. So you have to decide what you want to do with a team where your top end guys really did perform. Do you sell high on somebody in here? You're not trading Tavares. He has the full no move. You're not trading Marner. You're not trading Matthews. And you're probably not trading Morgan Riley, who just signed. That's why everybody circled back to William Nylander. And I just don't think that that's the best case scenario for them. But if they somehow make a massive trade and somehow acquire somebody that would be better fit for this team and is a better player and makes less money somehow, which doesn't grow on trees, listen, Kyle Dubas, if you want to figure that out, I'm just glad I'm not you. I'm just a guy talking to the camera. So regarding Mark Giordano, his contract last year with the Leafs, technically after getting salary retention, was under $4 million. I'm not sure how the Leafs can afford to bring him back if he wants multiple $1 million on his deal. If I'm the Leafs, to go, listen, we can give you like a pretty tiny contract. It's going to be like 1 point something or even less than $1 million. Maybe they come in first. Gio probably could get more money somewhere else. I know he would want to play in Toronto. He's been pretty open about it, but I'm not too sure. We'll have to go back to this because I want more information to kind of come out. It seems like the Leafs and Giordano are already talking, according to Elliot Freeman, so that's something to keep an eye out on. Him and Spezza likely take very cheap deals to stick around because Spezza's been doing it for a while, and that's something that Gio would probably have to follow suit with if he wants to help this team win, because they need some help when it comes to the cap. Now, I wanted to bring up Jack Campbell here because I know a lot of people are going to be questioning my take on whether or not the Leafs should pay big money for him. Now, if we're going to scroll all the way down here to the start of the season, he started off the season very good. We're going to take a look at the save percentage numbers here. So you're seeing most of these numbers in the 9s to the mid 9s, which is crazy. And you're still seeing that here. And high 9s, bad game there. High 9s and shutouts, by the way. High 9s, you're getting some 9s here too. You're getting high 9s here as well. And then you start to see it trails off. In the 800, 600, you get the one that's one there. I think this is the All-Star game one. So you can't look at the All-Star game stuff. But then you get the 800s, a good game there, another good game. But then again, you're back in the 800s. You're still in the 800s. You get a low 900. You get a good game here. Then you're seeing more of the 800 save percentage. A couple good games here. And then you're going into the playoffs. Perfect game in the first one, bad game in the second, good game in the third, bad game in the fourth, good game in the fifth, bad game in the sixth, and then a good in the seventh. So it wasn't as consistent as people seem to think. He had a really good start to the season. a really terrible stretch in the middle towards the end. He picked it up a little bit towards the end, and then in the playoffs, it was kind of back and forth. Him and Vasilevsky were both not really on top of their game. So when people are saying Jack Campbell was incredible in the playoffs, you have to look at these numbers and say, okay, maybe there was a few goals that he probably should have had. And I don't blame him at all, but I'm just saying there's people saying that he was like a savior and whatever else. Game 7, he kept them in the game, no doubt about it. But we're going to have to go into more detail as more information comes out about Jack Campbell and where his contract is going to be, because man, that's going to be a big one. And I'm not really sure if the Toronto Maple Leafs should engage in something like that. Now, this is something that we're going to look at going into the next video, but I wanted to try to give you guys a bit of a heads up. 82.5 will be the salary cap next year, so $1 million increase. Now, based off of what I believe could be possible, if you're calling up Nick Robertson and you're still needing a contract for Jack Campbell, you give Rasmus Sandin and Liljegren 2.5 each for 2 years. I don't know, could be less. I just wanted to overpay to show you guys that I'm not trying to undercut anybody. Nick Abruzzese making the team, Kerfoot making the team, which again isn't a guarantee. Andre Kasha maybe getting a $1.7 million contract. And then, of course, all your guys in the minors here and whatnot would leave the Leafs with $1.9 million in cap space to get a goaltender, to get a fourth-line player. But my point here is not just to show you that, oh, they're cap strapped. If you decided that you were done with Alexander Kerfoot, I'm just putting him on LTIR because it will remove the money. Of course, now the page is saying that it doesn't work. But regardless, you take away that 3.5 from Kerfoot, you take away that 3.8 of Peter Mrazek, and then maybe you even try to trade Justin Hall. That money right there is huge savings. You can get a cheaper defenseman, which could be a Mark Giordano. You can acquire somebody of significance in this third line position who could potentially play on the second line, and then get a fourth line type of player that you'd really like to get. And then you have money for Jack Campbell, or you focus on another goaltender. And let's not forget that they can make trades with salary retention, trade away first, prospects, whatever, to make this team better, to try to not overpay in free agency. So I know this is a lot of information to take in, but I wanted to give you guys a little bit in piece of everything that we're going to be talking about on this channel throughout the summer. I'm going to dive deeper into each and every one of these topics, probably multiple times, because more info will be coming out daily. So if you are new here, make sure to like this video and subscribe. Lots of Leafs content coming. Thank you guys so much. And again, I know there are a ton of people watching that aren't subscribed, so I'd greatly appreciate that. And hopefully I'll see you guys in the next video or stream. What will the Leafs do next? Let me know down below. Peace.